just got to think about things differently. I think that's why the sessions at the Centre for Life, you know, and the work with the activists that I do, they're just so powerful, because, like, you know, me and Davey will go in and we'll set the room up, you know, and it takes minutes, but the difference that has, so we'll remove some of the squeaky chairs, we'll put a visual planner on the wall, we'll, you know, maybe think about the acoustics in the room. So we do all this little forward planning that takes, what, 5-10 minutes, Davey? But that then has a massive impact, and then young people feel safe within that environment from some tiny adjustments. And then couple that with the fact that you're in a room with you know, staff that are non-judgmental, that kind of understand, you know, we've got one little chap that likes to move around a lot, and he has to be moving around, otherwise he's not listening. You know, if you said, sit down there and listen to everything I'm saying, he's not going to be able to listen, he's not going to be able to focus. So we quickly learned that actually, when we're doing our bit briefing at the beginning, we're going to let you move about a little bit, and you know what, that's fine. You know, we struggle as adults. I struggle as a non-autistic person in, you know, in training sessions and things. I've got to move around, I've got to flick my pen, I've got to tap my feet, you know, you've got to twiddle with your hair, all that stuff just to keep yourself regulated. But yet we think it's okay to have children sitting in rooms and they must sit at the table and they must do this and they must, but then I'll go on my soapbox, so I won't go on about that. But I think, David, we've seen the difference, haven't we? We're just making them small changes.
We have, and I think one of the other things, Kerrie, is giving people a voice. I think the young people we've been working with didn't really think that they were going to have a voice and an opinion and it was going to be listened to, because that's, unfortunately, is quite their experience in life, just like Kieran saying, is they get negative information, and that doesn't work well for them. And to actually create a situation where bit by bit that trust was built up and they could see that they had a view and it was listened to. In fact, the truth is, it's been listened to that much when we haven't done what they've said and what they've suggested. Actually, they've taken it really as a really personal slight, because you've done all these other things that you've said you do. Why didn't you do that one? So, but you see young people who weren't comfortable in speaking at all, really starting to get their voice and get their confidence. So I think it's actually setting something that allows people to interact, and because young people at school don't generally see other young autistic people either, because they might be the only person that's autistic in their class, or perhaps identified in their school or whatever. And bringing people together to see each other's autism and to understand what that means, I think is really, really powerful.
Yeah, and I think there, just with that, Dave, you've hit something that I just want to explore a bit further. I think there are other autistic children in the class. It's just that we don't give them the opportunities to be around each other. And I think the power of having autistic young people and autistic adults together, you know, as a community, I think that's the power. I mean, when we first started the activist group and the Centre for Life group, I was thinking, you know, what's going to happen here? How are they going to interact? All these questions were going through my mind, but actually they were communicating in their very own unique way with each other, and they were building relationships, you know, probably stronger relationships than I, as a non-autistic person, could make in that situation. You know, so they were already debunking all these myths and misconceptions that exist. You know, the empathy one is a key. So textbooks will tell you that autistic people lack empathy. Well, what a load of rubbish. You know, we have the most empathetic young people. So, for example, one of our young people, he gets very upset by the scraping noise of chairs. In that environment, there is another young person that will kind of go, oh, he's going to get upset by that, we need to not scrape the chair. Now, that is empathy. That is somebody thinking about somebody else's feelings and feeling that for them. You know, so it becomes very quick to see that when you just sit back and observe, you can get rid of a lot of their misconceptions as quickly as an hour's session. You know, more people need to see it, maybe.
You're taking that example of the floor finish, but as part of what we did at the Centre for Life, listening to the young people in the new exhibition areas, we changed the floor finish because we knew that horrible sound of a chair scraping across the floor, that high-pitched sound that none of us like. One of the young autistic people in particular that we were working with, he was just locked in with that sound as soon as it happened. So based on his experience and his feedback, we then changed the floor finish. We changed the chairs that we use in that area. So yes, they make a noise when they get scraped across the floor. That's not possible to remove that. but it's not that high-pitched sound. And like Kieran said earlier, making these adjustments makes a difference to everybody. Nobody likes that high-pitched squeaking sound, and it's gone. So
gone. And that brings me to my last question around awareness versus acceptance, because what you've done there, Davey, is you've been a little bit aware, a little bit autism aware, as we all like to, you know, everyone likes to use that term, but actually you've moved into that model of acceptance because you've done something about it. You've actively changed something. You've not just passively gone, well, I went on some autism training and I know a bit about autism. You've actually taken that knowledge and done something about it. And I just wanted to touch on that because obviously our, you know, Autism Acceptance Week is coming up, but, you know, people are super busy and this, you know, it's the least of the agenda at the minute with the situation that we're in with the coronavirus. But I think it's just important to touch on acceptance versus awareness. What are your thoughts on that, Kieran? Awareness.
No, I think I think you've just summed it up really well there, because awareness is passive and acceptance is active. Awareness is knowing about something. You know, I know that a car goes down the street. I don't know how a car works. You know, acceptance for that would, in that analogy, would be understanding how the car works and kind of getting behind the wheel and knowing what's doing what when I turn the engine on. And that's the same kind of thing. It's kind of what David's done there is kind of, he's become aware, he's listened to the autistic young person. Now, lots of people would listen to that and then go away and do nothing about it. But the Centre for Life have made changes. The Centre for Life have proactively gone out and made changes in order to meet the needs of that individual. And that's where we move into acceptance. You know, we've had awareness for a very long time. There is not a person in the country who doesn't have some semblance of an idea, whether it's right or wrong, of what autism is. They know the word. They might have myths attached to that, but they know what it is. But acceptance is taking that step further. Acceptance is actually doing something about it. And mostly what acceptance is actually actively listening to autistic people and then acting on what they ask. And that's very much what has not happened. Going back to your previous question, when you said about, you know, children haven't had the opportunity to come together. And historically, that's been because autistic people were not allowed to come together because people were fearful that we would learn to become more autistic. You know, when in actual fact, when autistic people come together, we are relaxed in the environment together and we show our true selves. You know, we don't mask anymore. And that's a fundamental thing that's been missing from this whole narrative, is that people have wanted to keep us apart so that we don't act more strangely from their point of view, but also they haven't listened and they've invalidated us constantly. They've dismissed sensory needs and, you know, all of these different things. They've dismissed our way of communicating. And, you know, everyone talks about that takes two people to communicate, and then they complain that autistic people don't communicate properly. You know, so it's all of these things. That's the difference. And that's how we move from that passiveness into that activeness.
Yeah, and I think you are, Davey, I have to say, a shining example of, you know, awareness be acceptance. I think, you know, what you've done at the Centre for Life is incredible. Another example, actually, because I've got to mention the sausage roll lady, because she's just incredible. I'm sure she won't mind me talking about her, but I think this, again, is another good example of acceptance be awareness. So there is a young person that comes that has a sausage roll every time when he comes to the centre, and then he does his session as usual. Now, if there's not a sausage roll available, he'll get very upset, because it's not because he's being difficult or he's being naughty. It's actually because it's become part of his routine. If that doesn't happen, then I can't move on to the next thing. So it's around transition and anxiety, really.
Sure.
Now, this lady behind the counter, she will save a sausage roll for this young man, no matter what. But the difference with that is she actually asked me last week, why is that important to that young person? So rather than just going, oh, well, he has a sausage roll, we've got to do that. She actually said to me, Kerrie, why is this so important as an autistic young person? And I sat down with her and I spoke about transitions and anxiety and, you know, needing to move on, complete something and all that type of thing. And I just think that is a shining example of that, moving from just being a little bit aware to, oh, well, he needs a sausage roll, we'll save him one, to actually acceptance. You've thought about it, you've internalized it, and you've done something with that knowledge. I think that's really powerful. And that lady, you know, she doesn't think anything of it. And I'm going, that's fabulous. What, you know, and you've made a massive difference to that young person, you know. You'd agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. She made a massive difference to that, not just that young person, but all the other young people and the parents round, because they can see that there's acceptance there. That's, you know, it's not just awareness, it's acceptance. So that going that extra mile, it's not just about what that one person gets from it. It's about the message it gives to the whole community of actually you're welcome here. And that's the bigger message, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to add anything before we leave?
Can I just say, sometimes people make adjustments, and the adjustments they think they do for one purpose. I'll give you an example, is ear defenders. So because, turn the clock back, people often think about ear defenders for being for young people. And to be honest, when I got the ordered ear defenders for the Centre for Life, I did initially I got ordered young persons ones. But once you start to listen to conversations, you realise that actually you might have adult visitors who need ear defenders as well. So we've now got ear defenders for adults if they need them at reception. They can borrow them. But the difference, the reason I'm saying that is that's not a massive adjustment to make, but to be able to tell both, to be able to tell families, adults and children that if you come to the Centre for Life and you forget to bring your ear defenders with you, or you need them on the day, we've got them to help you. It's just such a powerful message. It's not a massive adjustment, but it says a lot about how you're thinking, and that's the big bit. It's about acceptance.
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, I agree with that completely. It's kind of what you were saying about the sausage roll lady. To a lot of people listening to this, that might sound really trivial, but to that young person, that's a huge thing. You know, that's a huge. They might not understand cognitively at the moment that it's a kind of that lady's taken those extra steps. All they know is that the sausage roll has appeared, but you know, they don't have. That's something they don't have to worry about, and something they don't have to think about, and it's just there and it's thing. And having the ear defenders for adults as well, it's again, it's a small thing, but it's a huge thing as well. And it's, people think that you have to make all these grand gestures and all, but it's the little things that add up to make the huge differences, and that's the real key message there.
Absolutely. So some brilliant key messages there. So if you've tuned in, I hope you've enjoyed it. We've had the lovely Kieran, the Autistic Advocate, speaking, and Davy Jones from the Centre for Life. So we shall see you all very soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.